Welcome back
to another week
of
of
the
the
Unstoppable
Unstoppable
Force
Force
podcast.
podcast. Nice.
That was not
Um,
planned at all, but let's do it.
so welcome back, guys. This week we wanted to discuss an interesting story around kind of the Epic Game Store and developers and gamers, I think, in general, and like a certain sort of um tone that the industry kind of has taken a lot lately with these games that are going exclusive.
Yeah, like sort of a battle between like developers and the consumers,
hmm
like gamers.
But the game is called Ooblets, and it probably, I mean, you may have or may not have heard of it, but essentially, it's like they describe it as being sort of like Stardew Valley meets Pokemon.
Yeah.
It was interesting, developed by like a small team,
hmm
and they made a post about the fact that they went exclusive, essentially.
Yeah. Well, did they get backlash before this post, or is it
I think that this post sort of announced that they
okay?
were even doing it.
Right.
Um, so
Okay.
they really didn't have
Yeah.
a like
This
had
was it.
said anything.
Yeah, this was it. Okay. Definitely.
And I think there is it's kind of basically they said that why they did it
Mm.
and the reasons that they made the decision, and um also kind of addressed how people were feeling, but kind of in a
Like tongue in cheek kind of way.
yeah. I
Like
think it's the best way to put it is tongue in cheek actually.
yeah, definitely. Because
It's
they kind of went with the like they were pretty reasonable and they like stepped through like what Epic Games is and why they're doing it and all this stuff. But they kind of like when it came to like what's gonna be the reaction to this, they kind of pre like they like were kind of setting themselves up for what was gonna happen. So they kind of addressed it before any reaction came. So they were
mhm,
basically trying to say it sort of jokingly
yeah.
while at the same time be like, nah, screw you, like these like criticisms are kind of invalid anyway.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of parts where they were reasonable and they kind of explained the thinking, and like they may not have even been able to finish the game at all
Yeah.
without this money. And I think a lot of people don't realize that developing games is probably a lot more difficult than you think, especially if you're like you have a Kickstarter or it's not
hmm
doing great, or if you're trying to I guess like fund it yourself and you start to get low and you can't do it anymore and you're like,
Yeah.
well, it's pretty good right now, maybe I can sell it to a company
hmm
and see if somebody will publish it. And Epic is kind of handing them out right now to these sort of studios that need help.
Yeah.
um there's games that obviously don't need help though, that are doing this too. But we actually, I think with what they said at the end, the
Yeah.
best way to kind of give you the full background to address it would be to actually like read it.
Mm.
Um, so we're gonna read through this. You want to start?
Where should we start from?
I'd say right here where it says EGS doesn't have as many features as other stores, maybe. Or right before it, it says, I've read through all the arguments against Epic, and they basically come down to a couple of core issues.
Yeah. So EGS doesn't have as many features as other stores. As a user of both Steam and EGS myself, I haven't had any issues with using EGS to buy and play games personally. But regarding the features that are still missing, that's just sort of the way software is developed. Things take a lot longer to develop properly than people tend to realize, and nobody comes to market with perfect software.
I think like basically they're saying that Epic Game Store will be good
Yeah,
enough as Steam
yeah.
eventually.
Like they go on to say that here we go. I remember way back when I
hmm
plopped the disc for Half-Life 2 into my PC for the first time and was forced to install this new thing called Steam. It was a barely functional mess back then, as anyone who used it from that time period can tell you. It had it had it's had like 15 years to improve. If it wasn't worthwhile to improve, it wouldn't have been, and you wouldn't still be using it. I guess they're like basically saying, "Oh, like Epic Games is gonna be better or as good as
Right.
Steam in 15 years." Meanwhile, like honestly, in this point in the internet and like technology has improved so quickly that maybe needed those 15 years to get to where it is. But now, no, I'm saying like
Yeah.
now, you definitely don't need that same like everything should be already in like should
Yeah,
be
I
in
mean,
there if
15
it
years
exists.
ago, right? The technology is
Yeah,
not the same. I mean, building applications
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm
is
saying.
significantly easier.
Technology.
There's new development environments coming out, frameworks, libraries, uh, even new programming languages, and like even making a website takes like 2 seconds nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Not saying that that's like means that, that you can just like pump out updates to software.
All
I
right.
think that Steam has had a lot longer, but I definitely also think that Steam has put more time and money into in general. I mean, Fortnite's getting updates like every month,
Yeah.
and I don't even remember the last time I ever heard of Epic Store updating with any new
Hmm.
feature. And it's like, are they just going to do like a ton of features at once, or is it going to be like one feature every year? Like,
Weird.
like what's their planned schedule on this? Maybe we wouldn't be such annoying consumers about the game store, Epic Game Store, if they actually like created a
Hmm.
roadmap and told us what their features are going to be and when they're going to come out, and showing us that in 5 years
Hmm.
it actually will be good,
Yeah.
because we have no proof whatsoever that you have any idea what you're doing or what's coming out. So
Yeah, because from all we see is these deals and the money just going into Epic, and like obviously with the updates on Fortnite just going back into there, and then like nothing else.
mhm.
So we're just seeing like they keep saying that, oh, we just need to show that there will be enough people on here in order for us to put the money into it to make it worthwhile to have the people on there. It's
Mhm.
just like a loop that they're just saying they're going to be in for as long as they determine. I think.
Right. And if they make enough money doing it without having to update the app,
Yeah,
then it's just like, well, I
there's no
guess we'll
point.
get to it. It's not really cost effective, and it might lower our profits this year by like a couple $1,000, but let's not do it.
Yeah.
um, and then
So
they go on to say like it's anti-consumer to
right,
have exclusives.
right.
Um, and they're trying to address this idea that people have said that essentially the idea of having exclusives
Mhm.
is inherently bad.
Right. And it's like, yeah, it's anti-consumer, exactly as
Right.
they say it. But they actually kind of make an interesting point because they go on to talk about like having to buy different consoles, but this like because if you want to play like Halo, right, you had to buy
Mhm.
Xbox, you can buy PlayStation, right? That means you have to buy a whole different console to get it. But in this case, it's they go on to say that it's just free. You just click a button and you sign up,
Mhm.
and you have to pay anything else, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to pay anything at all.
The thing is I do actually kind of agree with him on this part a little bit.
Yeah.
It's it is kind of true that as much as we all hate the Epic Game Store, it's just a place to download games, and it doesn't have
Mm.
that many features that we'd like. But I mean, I wish I could say that they'll update it, but I'm not really sure they're
Look,
going to update it
mm,
very quickly.
no.
And then there's like companies like GOG, which are should be smaller than Epic,
Mm.
and they're like pumping out updates, and now they're coming out with this new version of what they're doing that's basically going to try to combine all the stores into like one super store where everything can be accessed or something. And I don't even know how they're going to do it, but they're trying to like be innovative and come out with updates and directly competing with Steam. You
Right.
should expect the Epic Game Store to
Yeah.
be at that same pace.
Yeah. Well, I also kind of want to make a point that you can almost argue that in on like PC at least having exclusives could actually sort of not like I don't know if it's exclusives could be beneficial because like they're not gonna lower their price based on where they're gonna be putting. But if like the rate like that Steam's taking off the top is more than Epic Games is,
Mhm.
then a game could sell for, less, for example, than they would on Steam and still make, the amount of money they were gonna make anyway. So we could see like I'm not saying that we're going to, but that could be a case to say that we could get like lower price games on Epic. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that it
Right.
could happen.
I mean, I think that there is a major point in the idea of like how much a game actually used to make you as a developer
Mhm.
versus now. Because when you were like sending these to stores, like
Yeah, you
GameStops,
have to talk about the disc and the case
hmm
and the shipping and then stocking and all this
yeah,
other stuff.
and I think that that would be like almost 40% of everything that would get made.
Right.
And then there was the percent to the publisher, and then if it was like on gonna be on Xbox or PlayStation, there's probably a percent to them.
Yeah, because I think that the reason why there was like $60 games is because
Mhm.
consoles were effectively subsidized like PCs.
Yeah,
So they would take the hardware that you can get in a PC almost at least and just put it in this device, and you're getting it for like $400. Meanwhile, it would cost like at least $800 if you're gonna
yeah,
get a
and they
PC
like
of
sold
this.
it for with no gain in money, with the
Right.
full goal of selling games on it,
Exactly.
essentially.
So that's why the higher cost games, part of that goes back so those guys get the
Yeah,
money to
and
basically
they
pay
still
for all
make the
this.
money
Yeah, exactly.
for anything that's sold on their platforms.
Exactly.
Just like Steam does, just
Yeah.
like any
Yeah.
platform in quotes
Mhm.
does.
But now when you don't have to pay for all those extra costs, there's no way a game should be $60.
There are some exclusives, by the way, you can get on the Microsoft Store because technically it's for Xbox as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they probably have like a different contract that just lets them sell it, and then I guess they
Mhm.
can also sell it on the
Yeah.
PC
Yeah.
version as well.
It's the best thing that's happened.
So it's possible that even this game, I'm not sure actually, would be available on it if it's on Xbox.
Oh.
So if a game's on Xbox, it might also be available on the Microsoft PC Store, possibly. So it might be just part of that contract, and they don't want to lose sales to the consoles. So they go,
Yeah.
fine, you
Yeah.
guys can sell it on their store.
Yeah.
I think like
What if
Metro Exodus is on there or something
Yeah,
like way
yeah.
before, and there's a couple other games. Maybe it's like they just get it sooner. They get to put it on the store like sooner than 6 months or something. I don't know. They probably don't want to tell us. Um, but then they kind of go on to talk about pirating,
Yeah.
and they said that they were disappointed by people who were threatening to pirate the game, and felt like uh, anybody who basically thinks that they either get a game they want on a platform they want, or they're gonna steal
Yeah,
from
they
the
feel
developers.
like they're owed something. They're
Yeah.
owed that game in that way.
I
And
think that there is like something to be said about gamers definitely feeling entitled though.
like I know we were talking and you mentioned like outside of this that like games have kind of not really been entirely viewed as art in the way like other art like paintings have,
Hmm.
and that like nobody goes to a painting and goes, "No, you didn't do it right. Like fix it. Like this is not what I expected you to paint." You know,
Yeah.
meanwhile, like it wasn't really for you. It was just there to be purchased or looked at. Like
Yeah. It's like I am expressing myself onto a painting and you get to observe it, but it's almost absurd to imagine somebody trying to tell an artist to suit to their tastes instead of just doing whatever it is that they want to do, because then it's just like you, instead of forcing an artist to do something, you should just pick the artist that is doing what you like.
yeah,
And that's
exactly.
what we do in games too. It's like if you're into a specific genre, you're going to be attracted to game designers that kind of fit those different genres that you prefer. um but I think there is a certain expectation that gamers do have
Mhm.
in things being a certain way. And I think in this case, it's more of the economic and like business decision, not really a design decision.
Yeah.
and I think that changes things a bit in that regard.
Mhm.
Like, it's not really as much of a criticism of the
Yeah.
art as it is a criticism of, like, they feel like
True.
it's greedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the same time, I don't think it's really greedy because I think
No.
it's probably that these people didn't really have another choice.
Mm.
Usually, I feel like in situations like this,
Mhm. Also, I think that
it's pretty grueling too.
in my honest opinion, I think that the only argument here from the gamers is that, oh, it's inconvenient, and that's just not really a great argument. Like,
It's not a good enough argument to
n-
send death threats
no,
over.
definitely not.
Yeah. Anybody who actually verbally attacks anybody over this is kind of a total asshole.
Yeah, shitty person.
Like, it's I just see this as people trying to do what's in
Mhm.
the best interest of their business and the best interest of their company, which I think if you don't own a company and you're not like trying to like be able to pay bills and like make it and be able to continue doing what you love and sustain your life, like you probably would understand how difficult a decision this probably was.
Mhm.
Um and then but the thing is this is kind of where they really start to, I think, get to the point where the controversy occurs,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
went just a bit too far in their addressing of the criticisms of the Epic Game Store. Um, I'm
But
actually going to read this
yeah.
part. I get the appeal of wanting to seek out things to get angry about. Venting anger is cathartic and natural, but let's have just a little perspective about what we decide to get angry about. Look at the things going on around you and ask yourself if there might be anything just a tad bit more worthwhile to be upset about. Here's just a few suggestions: climate change, humans' rights abuses, the new Twitter desktop UI, the last season of Game of Thrones, in quotes those last or in parentheses those last two were jokes, please don't yell at people about them. So let's remember that this is all low stakes video game stuff we're dealing with here, nothing to get worked up about. And I, Ben slash perplamps, will be around on Discord to answer any questions and talk about any concerns or confusions you might still have. Okay, that was a lot to talk about, so thanks so much for reading through it all. We're really hoping this epic stuff is something you can all celebrate with us for the good thing that it is. And we'll have a lot more fun stuff to share with you moving forward. Um and like the first part is just like almost kind of like a fuck off in a way. I
Yeah.
think comes off to a lot of people probably in that way.
Yeah. Like, go worry about your other shit.
Yeah, it's
And like,
like you've got better things to worry about. Stop paying attention to this.
it's like calling people out too. That
Mhm.
like, oh, this is all you have to worry about is this shit. Like, oh, look at your pathetic fucking gamer
Yeah.
life. Yeah, I mean, and like, they couldn't really like, oh, like save face with like in those parentheses underneath. It's like the last two were jokes. Please don't yell at people about them.
It's
Like,
kind of
you have to
actually
clarify that. You kind of didn't set that up properly to make it so clear that it's a joke that people won't just stop reading. Because once you're like the new like you get, oh, human rights abuses, the new Twitter desktop UI, you're like,
Mhm.
man, you're not taking this shit seriously.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's like you can't like put climate change, human rights abuses, and then just jokes like those,
hmm
and then afterwards say, "Please don't yell at people about them,"
yeah,
being like, "Calm down, okay?"
yeah,
Like those were jokes. Please
yeah.
don't yell at people about them. Like almost like
Mm,
they're scolding. And I think that they were trying to be like you said, tongue in cheek.
mm,
They were trying to be lighthearted about it, but then they went a little ham at the end.
yeah,
And that joke, I feel like everybody at that point was just like done with
yeah,
the article. No one read past that when they kind of be a little bit more lighthearted.
yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
think, yeah.
it is near the bottom, so like if you read that far and then you got like a
Mhm.
FU, it's
And
like
then there's a
really,
PS even after that.
oh yeah. But well, so there's one more thing that they did, and this was more up top in the blog post, and they're in one of their bullet points they were mentioning, what, like, who is Epic and what are you talking about? One of the bullet points they have here is Epic paying for PC exclusive has become the latest thing gamers have gotten angry about, which I'll about more talk more about a bit further down. In this bullet point, they have gamers capitalized TM so
Mhm.
that they're like being sarcastic in this situation, I think, to be like, oh, like people that like put themselves up as gamers, this is who we are, at like identify, like, oh, that's my identity as a gamer,
Yeah.
like that's like they're calling them out here. And they're like, oh, they always get mad. This is the latest thing these guys are getting mad about. Kind of set that tone. This is like up near the top about explaining what Epic is. Like they kind of set that tone, and they probably shouldn't have up there. They want it to be jokes. Like that is like
Yeah.
kind of aggressive, actually. I think.
I think they came out swinging at it as like a different strategy of dealing with people, I think. They were like, maybe if we go out like with this tongue in cheek kind of aggressive, but then kind of pull back and then be aggressive again and
Uh,
then pull back kind of blog post, that they'd get less backlash, or maybe like if they did get backlash, they'd just be like, oh well, our core audience won't really
hmm.
mind it,
Yeah,
and it won't really
they can
change.
also just be like, "Oh gosh, guys, can't you take a joke?" Like if you just like that, it's like, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I just think they're underplaying what it is that they're doing and saying to an extent, though. That essentially because the Epic Game Store will eventually be better, we're gonna do it, and that essentially everyone should just be on board and happy for them and not a little upset. Like they didn't address anything at all. And then
mhm.
you've got like the other game, like I think it was
Yeah,
before this that got announced.
yeah.
What was it called?
Industries of Titan.
Yeah, Industries of Titan, and it was basically they basically just said, we are sorry that
Yeah,
we've inconvenienced you guys,
yeah,
but without this, we wouldn't be able to make the game that we wanted to make. We wouldn't be
mhm,
able to do what we wanted to do.
yeah,
And we're sorry that we've inconvenienced you, but, you know, we think this is in the best interest of the game, and that going forward, we want to add more to the game essentially and use this as a chance to make the game the best it could be.
yeah.
And it was like very kind of like addressing the fact that people would absolutely be disappointed.
Right. It was very genuine, like not just like dismissive. It was like
Mhm.
we're kind of stuck in this place where well, to create this final product that will be best for both the gamers and the developers, we need to do this, even if it will inconvenience you, and we apologize for that.
Mhm.
That was just a situation, and like being more genuine is obviously way better off.
Yeah.
And like I'm not exactly sure of the response, but obviously we haven't heard anything about death threats, so I'm sure it was way more positive, or like just okay, yeah, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, I think people when they read something like that, they just go, "Fine." They're
Yeah,
kind of just like, fine.
yeah,
It's okay." Yeah, maybe eventually it'll come out, or I'll just play it on there. It's not like that important to get achievements or have
yeah,
really cool mods in a couple months. Um, you know. Also, have to add my friends on there if I want to play with them, but
yeah,
it's probably going to be just overall a worse experience using the
yeah,
platform, but I'll deal with it. And then this person, I think that the thing is though is also when these games announce since day one that they're going to be coming out, and these indie developers talk about this, and they have all these people helping them or supporting them along the way, especially if it's like Kickstarters or any sort of crowdfunded game. Um, they get an expectation that it's
mm,
going to be on the platform that they use all the time,
yeah,
Steam. And especially when it's closer to the release of a game, and if they gave the impression that they were going to be on Steam, whether it was through saying that they were on Steam directly or including Steam as like one of the platforms that they were planning originally on
yeah,
launching. And then they just go exclusive. People have a right to be annoyed by that.
yeah, yeah,
People, they're forced onto something that they don't want to use, and if you just kind of tell them to get over it and to worry about bigger
mm,
things, and not addressing the fact that people will absolutely have their day ruined by that news. Like, genuinely, regardless of
Mm.
if they're even upset with you, but if you trigger them to be upset with you while they're also upset about the news, that's not going to help.
Yeah, I totally understand if you're like paying for something with the expectation of it being on whatever platform or launcher
Mhm,
that you're used to. Um, I will say though, it's just an inconvenience. Like you can be upset, but like we said, I think the death threats are just totally
oh, yeah.
unwarranted. So like voice your opinions or whatever it is, and just be like the community is better off if if we have it on Steam just because of
Mhm.
all the features that are on there and just everything that's already set up.
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna buy games on the Epic Game Store regardless. I'm not gonna wait 6 months to play Borderlands.
True.
I mean, I don't think a single one of
No,
us is going to play
no,
or
nobody's
wait,
gonna wait.
yeah. Me and Mike aren't gonna wait either. Mike's definitely not. I
Yeah,
mean, there's when a game is too good, you just have to get the fuck over it.
yeah,
I think that Borderlands, they're gonna show that Borderlands is gonna do fine
mm.
regardless of being on the Epic Game Store. I think the indie games, though,
I'm gonna have a tough time. Yeah,
yeah, I think the indie games are gonna be the ones that get hit real tough. And I think that Epic may lose money on those. Who knows?
yeah.
Because the thing is, it's like a game like Ooblets, I probably would have just seen a ton of people play
Mm.
on like Twitch, because I think usually if a game is on Steam, it's much more likely to be played by streamers. I think when there was like a game, I forget what it's called. It was War, I think it was War Z. Yeah.
Mm.
And it was like kind of mediocre reviews, but no one played it on Steam or on Twitch really. And it was co-op and stuff, and I was kind of surprised. But I think that a lot of that has to do with the platform because there's like different streamers which will do
Mm.
like Saturday night
Yeah,
random game fests on Steam
yeah,
and get recommended stuff. I think there's like a culture, it's like a community on Steam.
yeah,
There
yeah.
is a community.
Mm.
And that's why they're so fervent about things being on Steam is because they're like, but all my friends are on Steam
And
and
like,
all the people I talk to and all my
mm,
everything, all my blogs, my forums, my
mm,
Steam workshop that I add
yeah,
mods
the
to.
mods, yeah,
Like this is a huge community that's constantly communicating with each other through Steam in a way that Epic
mm.
couldn't ever possibly like catch up
Yeah,
to.
yeah, exactly.
They're right,
Mm.
15 years of updating Steam,
Mm.
slowly release after release, building communities from forums. They probably because the way that Steam, I think their part of their philosophy is the forums being always a part of it. I'm sure it like started that way.
Mm.
I'm not certain, but I can only imagine that they would have like pretty intricate forums and things like that. A lot of old stuff started.
Yeah, definitely. And like, the there's always like shit that's not even gaming,
Yeah,
but like I don't know. It kind of, I think we'll kind of see when with like Borderlands is like the kind of bigger test, in my opinion, because I think that we'll either see a lot of people buying it and Borderlands be unfazed by it, not phased by it, or we'll see some people buy it and just a ton of pirating happening, and then it comes out that like there's just all these people are pirating it, and then just a shit storm after that. That's what I think. Then I think um like you said with indie games, that'll make or break Epic. I think if Borderlands does really well, I think that'll like keep. I know like Fortnite's doing amazing, so they have all this money,
yeah.
whatever. But like if Borderlands is not really proof of like games being able to get over to the Epic Game Store, then like they're just shit out of luck. They're just gonna get more indie games to just suck them dry from the Fortnite money.
Mhm.
That's my prediction.
Um, but like just in general, I think developers and this there's just this fight between gamers and developers over whether or not it's right or wrong to take money
Mm,
to finish these games, and I think a lot of people need to realize it's very difficult to make a game, but then the developers need to realize that gamers have feelings too,
Yeah.
and
Well, yeah, we're
it
coming off
does.
of like a lot of like non-consumer friendly things like
Yeah.
loot boxes and like you said unfinished games when you're paying up front and just stuff like that. So any little thing that seems like it is not friendly to the consumer
hmm
just gets attacked.
It's kind of like it's like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of situation. It's just there's been too many
Hmm.
situations. Epic. Honestly, I mean, I will give them one thing with Fortnite being one of the more consumer friendly designs monetization wise because it's like you can just buy individual things. There's not loot boxes. If you're not paying money, you can still do the battle
Hmm.
pass. It's just like you get way crappier stuff and you don't get everything.
Yeah.
And then if you pay money, you'll just get all the stuff you've gotten up to that point.
Right.
So it's like if you do actually get really far in a battle pass and then pay for it at the very end, just get everything you've earned up to that. And other than that, though, like the exclusivity deals, I think kind of fucked people over a little bit. But at the same time, you can just download it. I don't know. It's annoying for sure, but it's definitely not as annoying as microtransactions
Yeah.
and loot boxes.
I'm just I find like on like a kind of last note, I think that I don't even blame. I mean, sort of blame Epic like oh they don't have all the features and stuff. But look at like who everybody's getting mad at. It's all these games that are going to Epic. It's not Epic's fault. They're just giving these games a platform to be on that is a
hmm
good deal to have. Like everybody's just getting mad at these guys, not at Epic, and it's like, all
It's
right,
kind of like the like I'm gonna offer you a deal
yeah,
you can't refuse kind
yeah,
of thing. It's like here's like $10 million.
yeah,
You could have all this money and you'll have no risk and you'll never lose your jobs and you'll all get to continue making video games indefinitely into the future.
yeah.
Or you guys can risk everything and fail. And something else we forgot to mention too is that there's probably a lot more games that have come out that are not bad that have
Mm,
just flown under the radar because there's something called success bias, which essentially means
Survivor
that, or
bias.
survival bias, yeah,
Yeah,
essentially means that you're only going to ever see the games that
Or-
broke
that's yeah,
through.
that is 60. Yeah, you don't see all the ones that fail.
So even if it was like 90% of games fail, which
Hmm.
it kind of is, especially if you go to mobile platforms, I think it's actually even higher,
Really?
like 95 or 96%, probably even more. Um, like it's a lot more difficult than you think. And when you're just told that, like imagine your entire life wanting to make video games and just being told that, it's like kind of hard to throw it down, like to turn it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Um,
Wrap it up right there. As always, thank you for listening and following.
Check us out every Thursday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are available.
You can find us on Instagram at Unstoppable Force Podcast and Twitter at UForcePod for news and updates.
We'll see you guys next week. And
And until
until
then,
then, stay
stay
unstoppable.
unstoppable.